When a community can't afford police, the 5-day experiment in Masontown. On January 6, 2026, the Borough Council of Masontown, Pennsylvania voted 6-1 to lay off their entire police department. Every officer, the police chief, all 6 or 7 personnel who provided law enforcement coverage for a community of 3,000 people. The decision took effect immediately. That same evening, Police Chief Thomas O'Bardo had to pull his officer off patrol and send him home. By nightfall, a borough that had maintained 1 to 3 minute emergency response times was now dependent on Pennsylvania State Police, stationed 30 minutes away in Uniontown. For 3,000 residents, 38% of whom live in poverty, the layoff forced a choice between paying property taxes or paying for police protection. 5 days later, the decision was reversed. Those 5 days revealed what happens when economic pressure meets the cost of essential services. Masontown's economic reality drove the decision to eliminate police protection. The borough sits in southwestern Fayette County, Pennsylvania, part of the Pittsburgh metro area. The population has been in steady decline for decades. In 2000, 3,611 people lived there. By 2020, that number had fallen to 3,271. By 2025, it was down to 3,084. That is a 12.7% decline in 25 years. The people who remain face severe economic strain. The poverty rate is 38%, more than double the county and state averages. 37% of children under 18 live below the poverty line. The unemployment rate sits at 17.8%, roughly 3 times what is considered normal. The median household income is $49,536, significantly below county and state levels. 75% of Masontown residents own their homes, higher than the national average of 65%. The median property value is $116,700. Masontown has a population that is property rich but income poor. Residents own homes, but they struggle to generate the income needed to pay the property taxes those homes require. Those property taxes are high. Masontown's municipal property tax rate is 5.9264 mils. In Pennsylvania's millage system, that translates to roughly $592 per year for a home assessed at $100,000. The borough's rate is the highest in the Albert Gallatin School District and among the highest municipal tax rates in Fayette County. The county average is 2.9%. Neighboring Spring Hill Township's rate is as low as 0.63 mils. Nearly all of that money funds the police department. The department's annual budget was approximately $485,000. In Pennsylvania boroughs, police departments typically consume all or the vast majority of the general millage rate. Masontown residents who own a home worth $100,000 earn well below the county median income and pay roughly $600 per year in municipal property taxes, almost entirely to fund 6 or 7 police officers. The last time the borough raised property taxes was 2019. For the 5 years leading up to 2026, the council had worked within the existing budget. The police department was fully funded and actually had a budget surplus. In 2025, the borough had just invested $100,000 in new police equipment, body cameras, tasers, and new patrol cars. Council President John Staffa framed the problem directly. He said, "We have the highest property taxes in the Albert Gallatin School District. We have some of the highest municipal tax rates in the county. We want to cut taxes." The council's goal was to cut the 2027 property tax by 50 to 60%. Long-term, Staffa said some council members hope to abolish property taxes entirely, which would make Masontown potentially the only municipality in Fayette County, possibly in Pennsylvania, to eliminate property taxes. His reasoning was this. He said, "Some of us on council have a political philosophy. Once you own your property, you should not be paying the government rent. You own it, it's yours. The meeting on January 6th was a reorganization session. 3 new council members had been elected in November 2025. On January 6th, a 4th member was appointed. The composition of the council had shifted dramatically. According to Mayor Michael Washko, the vote to lay off the police force came right out of the chute for the first meeting with brand new council members. The resolution passed 6-1. Only Councilwoman Nanette Cochran voted against it. The layoffs took effect immediately. Police Chief Obarto described what happened. They laid us off that evening. I had to pull my officer in off the road and send him home. The personnel affected included Chief Obarto, 1 other full-time officer who had just been hired in December, and 4 part-time officers. Pennsylvania State Police from the Uniontown Barracks, 16 miles away, began providing coverage. Response times changed immediately. Chief Obarto was explicit about the difference. He said you would have to wait like 30 minutes. He said we are 1 minute to 3 minutes to get anywhere here. In medical emergencies, violent crimes, or situations where seconds matter, the gap between 3 minutes and 30 minutes determines outcomes. For residents experiencing a break-in, a domestic disturbance, or a medical crisis requiring law enforcement assistance, the wait time increased by a factor of 10. Community knowledge disappeared. Obarto continued. He said, we know people in town. We know who they call the bad eggs. We can kind of mitigate that a bit. When people see the police car out and about, or when they see that everybody is referring to me as TO, you do not get that with the state police. Local officers know the community, the individuals, the recurring problems. State police troopers covering a 16-mile radius do not have that knowledge. They respond to calls, but they do not patrol neighborhoods or maintain relationships with residents and business owners. Obarto stated, we have every type of crime that a major city has in our borough. We have homicides down to the smallest internet cryptocurrency cases. Despite Councilman Greg Adamson's claim that there is not high crime in the area, the police chief's assessment suggested a full range of criminal activity requiring law enforcement attention. For Masontown residents, the service they had been paying $600 per year per $100,000 of home value to maintain was gone. The officers who responded in 3 minutes were no longer there. The community policing relationships were severed. The trade-off was the promise of a 50 to 60% property tax cut in 2027. For that $100,000 home, that would mean saving roughly $300 to $350 per year. For a community where 38% of people live in poverty, that represents significant money. But the exchange was immediate, no local police protection. The reaction was swift. Mayor Washko called the decision quite unexpected. He noted that the police department had been fully funded in the 2026 budget, which had already been passed. He said the issue of money was not really the point, because it has been funded, and it has been funded for the last 5 years. He said the last time we raised taxes was in 2019, and we have been working within the budget ever since then, and the police department actually has a surplus in their budget at this time. Residents began speaking out immediately. Stacy Rude said, we have a good community, and we need the police presence here. Priorities are in the wrong spot. The process itself became a focal point. The vote had not been noticed on the posted agendas for the reorganizational or business meetings held January 6th. On January 9th, Fayette County District Attorney Mike Allbell sent a letter to the borough stating his intention to file a lawsuit over the vote, claiming it violated Pennsylvania's Sunshine Act, which requires public notice of government meetings and votes. Allbell stated there should have been notification to not just myself and the state police, but to the public in general. He called the initial action a possible violation of Pennsylvania's Sunshine Act. That same day, Council President Stoffa met with 3 council members, the mayor and the police chief. They scheduled a special Saturday night meeting to vote on rescinding the layoffs. Stoffa said the council would now require more detailed monthly reports from the police, including traffic citation counts and patrol car mileage. The special meeting was scheduled for 5 p.m. on Saturday, January 11th at the Borough Municipal Office. More than 60 people packed the council chambers, with overflow spilling into the hallway. The council voted 6-0 to reinstate the entire police department, effective immediately. The motion included 3 provisions. First, restore funding for the department throughout fiscal year 2026. Second, carry over any surplus into the next year. Third, reopen negotiations with Teamsters, Local 491, to renew the police contract. Applause and cheers broke out in the chamber. Councilman John Chall acknowledged the reversal. He said he accepts his personal assessment was inaccurate. He said folks obviously believe we need a police department and are willing to pay for it, and he is more than happy to provide. Resident Melissa Brandt addressed the council directly. She said your decision was a blatant disregard for public safety. When people feel blindsided, that is not because they were not paying attention. It is because transparency failed. Chief Obardo reflected on the situation. He said all of this could have been handled with a phone call or a knock on the door. None of this had to occur. It might be a blessing in disguise because the people have now been heard. The 5-day period between the layoff vote and the reversal clarified the economic trade-offs communities face. Masontown residents, despite living in a borough with 38% poverty, 17.8% unemployment, and a declining population, demonstrated they were willing to continue paying property taxes to maintain local police protection. The threat of 30-minute response times and the loss of community policing proved unacceptable. The underlying economic tension remains unresolved. Property taxes in Masontown are still among the highest in the county relative to neighboring municipalities. The median household income is $49,536. The poverty rate is 38%. The police department budget is approximately $485,000, funded almost entirely by the 5.9264 mil property tax rate. These figures underscore the strain on public resources. Council President Staffa's stated motivation persists. After the reversal meeting, when asked again if the decision was about property taxes, he said he thought state police would do a better job. He said he did not feel $485,000 worth of value had been delivered, and that 2 traffic citations had been written. He said he thought it was a culture of laziness, and he wanted it to improve. He said they were spending $485,000, and he wanted results. Staffa's remarks left the motivation unchanged. The council now requires more detailed monthly reports from the police department and wants prospective hires introduced before approval votes. Chief Obardo said these were minor changes that could have been accomplished without layoffs, but they signal ongoing scrutiny of the department's value relative to its cost. For residents, the choice was clarified. They can pay roughly $600 per year for each $100,000 of home value to maintain 1 to 3 minute emergency response times and local community policing. Or they can save that money and accept 30-minute response times from state police who do not know the community. When forced to make that choice explicitly, residents chose to pay. This was a clear community decision. That choice comes with consequences for household budgets. In a community where 38% of people live below the poverty line, where the median household income is significantly below county and state levels, and where unemployment runs nearly 18%, $600 per year is not trivial. For families barely making ends meet, that money could cover groceries, utilities, or emergency expenses. The impact on household budgets is real. Masontown faces the same question as communities across the country, where economic pressure meets the cost of maintaining essential services. How much can residents afford to pay? What services are they willing to give up to reduce costs? And what happens when the service being considered for elimination is emergency response? These are fundamental questions for local government. The answer in Masontown, at least for now, is that police protection is not negotiable. The community made that decision when 60+ people showed up to a Saturday night council meeting and demanded their officers be reinstated. They made it when they applauded the 6-0 vote. They made it when residents like Melissa Brandt told the council the decision was a blatant disregard for public safety. As of January 12, 2026, all Masontown police officers are back on the job. The department is fully funded through the end of the fiscal year. Any budget surplus will carry over. Negotiations with Teamsters. Local 491 are reopened. Pennsylvania State Police are no longer providing coverage. Response times are back to 1 to 3 minutes. Community policing relationships are restored. Chief Obardo and his officers know the residents, know the recurring issues, and can respond with that knowledge. The property tax rate remains 5.9264 mils. The annual police budget remains approximately $485,000. The economic reality facing residents remains unchanged. 38% of residents still live in poverty. The median household income is $49,536. The unemployment rate is 17.8%. The population is still declining. Property owners are still paying among the highest municipal tax rates in Fayette County. The council's long-term goal, as stated by Council President Stoffa, is still to reduce property taxes by 50 to 60% in 2027 and potentially eliminate them entirely. That goal directly conflicts with maintaining a police department that consumes nearly all of the general millage revenue. The 5-day experiment demonstrated what happens when a community tries to resolve that conflict by eliminating police services. Residents made clear they are unwilling to accept that trade-off. The tension between what people can afford to pay and what services cost to provide remains. For now, Masontown residents are paying for police protection. The question is how long they can continue to afford it, and what happens if the economic pressure becomes too great to sustain.